Like many activities and hobbies, when you get deep down the rabbit hole, you'll hear a lot of different lingo being thrown about. Maybe you have a friend, significant other, or more likely a child that uses some terms that have you scratching your head. Acronyms and other phrases being thrown about every other syllable might have you wondering what the hell they might be saying to you. So let the Dove explain some basic gamer terms for the non-gamer. Quick disclaimer, we're just scratching the surface on the terminology for gamers. You could play a different game, and the lingo and terminology will change slightly like a different dialect or some different language. FPS or RPG. Yes, I cheated right away with 2 in 1. These phrases in gaming generally refer to a category of games, first-person shooter and role-playing game, which are 2 of the most popular categories in gaming at this time. There are a zillion more categories, but you will often hear gamers talk about a new RPG or FPS game. First-person shooters, not to be confused with frames per second, which has the same acronym and is also important in gaming, refers to the placement of the camera in an action shooter game. It is just exactly what it sounds like. You're replacing the character's eyes with a camera so you can see through the character's eyes. Now, this isn't the absolute first FPS game, but Doom is looked at as the granddaddy of the first-person shooter genre. Poor Wolfenstein. But Doom was the game that really went all out with the absolute mayhem and devastation. These days, Call of Duty has bullied its way into the top first-person shooter game via the market hold, and it's probably one of the most well-known games out there. There are just so many great first-person shooter games out there, you can't try them all. But from Apex Legends to Deathloop, there are just a plethora of great ones out there. Role-playing games are a bit broader of a description. It's a game in which players assume roles of characters in a fictional setting, and they make actions and decisions that develop the character and or the game. Okay, so like every game could be an RPG if you really get lawyery about it and that description. And yes, some games can be both an FPS and an RPG. That is the essence of the Fallout series. And you can actually also play that in third person, but let's not get into that. The Witcher games, Baldur's Gate series, and of course the Final Fantasy catalog are some of the top role-playing games in the genre. And that is really just scratching the surface. RPGs are a great way to escape to another world and get lost in all the systems and storylines you come across. The stories are usually epics, and the absolute best RPGs will change how the story unfolds as a result of the player's decisions or actions. And there are just so many subgenres along with that, from MMORPGs to JRPGs to Souls-like. There are so many games you can try in the RPG category. You hear this term when playing and aren't sure who your teammates are bashing? It's you. You are the noob. Noob or newbie refers to someone who is brand new to the game, or at least new to the online element of the game in question. While it is not always a negative term, it generally is used as a term to belittle said gamer's abilities. To be fair, some online games require a lot of little nuances that people who just join wouldn't know. When the servers randomly mix brand new players with some seasoned veterans, being asked how to jump or open the door is not what those veterans want to be dealing with. If you are new to a game, embrace that. Everything is new and exciting, and you can learn something at every turn. Play tutorials and check the online manuals before asking every basic question. Let people on your team know you are new to the game. They might have some good pointers. So don't only know what a noob is, know how to avoid becoming one for long. Practice and self-awareness can go a long way. After a game comes out, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people get their hands on the game. Once that happens, the most well-thought-out games can be broken by one random person figuring out a certain weapon here or special move there can take down any opponent or boss. If that happens, developers then can nerf the OP weapon or special. In other words, the developers can reduce the effect of the overpowering weapon or special ability. Most games these days have a few tweaks come out in patches soon after their release, and people will notice differences quickly. For online games especially, developers have to tweak things to make matches even and fair. Having a weapon that takes all of your health away with one shot, while everyone else has metaphorical sticks and stones, is an instance where developers will have to balance things in some way to make the game more fun to play. In the case I just made up, The gun is way too OP and needs to be nerfed so all the people with just sticks and stones have a chance. This can go both ways. A weapon can appear too weak at first and need to get a buff or an improvement to make it more desirable. In the online Battle Royale Apex Legends, the Mozambique was initially a small-range shotgun with a small spread and only 3 shots. After a few people would even use the weapon, Respawn fiddled with the design and added modifications like the hammer point rounds that did damage underneath the shields, which made the gun a lot more deadly. Then they added 3 more shots, moving the magazine from 3 to 6 rounds and way more viable. Developers have to often be very careful with the adjustments after release, as one tiny move here or there can have unintended consequences in another part of the game. So simply, a buff makes a weapon stronger, nerf makes it weaker, and OP means that weapon is overpowering. The grind. Oh, how gamers love to complain about the grind, even though it's entirely voluntary and self-inflicted. But still, a grind can keep gamers away from a new title. The grind is very similar to the real-life grind of working away for little in return. Generally, video gamers grind out XP or some kind of in-game currency to make their player better, or just buy them some fancy clothes to put on their avatar. No genre is immune to this. Any repetitive game will have some kind of grind to it. Some games will make you grind in order to learn how to play properly. See Sifu or any Souls-like. But massive multiplayer online games and games as a service are all about the grind, to a point where it is a big turnoff for most people. The most recent and blatant example is the new Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. The game is a brief run through a wide open map where you get points, level up your player by defeating enemies and collecting XP. The more you play, the more costumes and crap you can unlock. And get this, after you defeat the main boss Brainiac, you are told you have to go through the whole game 13 more times to finish it. That is a fucking grind if I ever heard of one. Don't get me wrong, I've replayed many games I have enjoyed, but I would not want to replay any game 13 times in a row to feel like I finally beat the thing. That is just an exponential grind. And finally, DLC or downloadable content is additional gameplay, levels, skins, or other components added to the game through a download. There are both paid for and free DLC, and generally it is for after finishing a game, but many DLC can add context or just make a game bigger. Like in the case of Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, DLCs can add on a good chunk of story or just give players some weapons and skins the fans request after the game comes out. Like the games themselves, all DLCs are not created equally. Some are simply a cash grab for unaware parents or consumers, adding little more than cosmetics to the game. It also begs the question, why wasn't this stuff in the game when it came out? Is this just a plan to string a customer along and try to bleed as much money as possible? Did you release the game before it was completely finished? Or are you honestly trying to add depth to the story? It's always a crapshoot as to what the answer actually is. Regardless of that answer, buyer beware of DLC. As resident grandpa gamer here, I have come around a little bit on DLC, but it has to be a game you truly enjoy to put even more money into it. $70 as a baseline for modern games is a lot. Adding on $25 to $50 for a DLC can make a game go from an occasional treat for yourself to a financial travesty. And on the other hand, you can add a lot of depth to a game. Look at Insomniac's Spider-Man. That DLC added a lot to the game that you saw come back in both Miles Morales and Spider-Man 2. But again, DLC is just something that you have to trust your gut. If you enjoy the game and want a little more, it might just be worth it. On the other hand, if it looks purely cosmetic, maybe hold off until the next installment. Folks, if you enjoyed this, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you'd like more content like this. For even more content, go to twohatsandabeard.com or check out our YouTube page. Until next time, this is the Dove.